Two useful functions when working with division formulas are int and mod. Int will give you the whole number of a result, and mod will give you the remaining value after the whole number is taken off of a result. Let's take the mod working file, and in here we have an integer and mod worksheet that has a main number, which is 36 in our case, being divided by different values, and then the result of that division. And we've just used the clever formula text formula here to show what formula is happening. So all of these are dividing into whatever number is in there. So we could change that to 48 and we would see a different set of results. So if out of that set of results, we are only interested in the whole number, then we can set a formula in here, which is equals int for integer, the whole number. And we can either base that on the result that we have there, or actually base it around the division formula itself. Let's look at basing it on the result for the moment. So int of C2 returns 4, which is exactly the same as the result. But if we replicate the formula, we then get to see only the whole number. So 9 instead of 9.6, 12, 1 instead of 1.5, 16 and 8. So this is not rounding, this is just completely stripping away the whole number, so the value to the left of the decimal place effectively. Now, if we want the value from the other side, so the remainder, then we could either take the result and take away the int, or we can use the mod function. So the mod function is equals mod, open brackets. It requires the number that you're going to divide into, which in our case is A2, 48 for the moment, and then the cell that you're going to divide by, which is B2. And when we press return, we get 0 because there's no leftovers. 12 goes into 48 4 times with nothing left over. Now, before we can replicate this formula, we need to make absolute the reference to A2, so that when we replicate, it then looks down this divide by list and uses the correct number. So we can see that 5 goes into 48 9 times, which is our whole number here. That comes to 45, so we're left with 3. And there's our remainder, 3. No remainders when you divide by 12. When you divide by 32, you get one whole number and then 16 left over. Now, the correlation between the decimal place and our leftovers is we have 1.5 is the result. So your half is left over. So you've got half of 32 left over, which is just 16. And here you have 0.6 left over. So that's 0.6 times 5, which is 3. So there is a correlation between the decimal place result and our mod value, but this just returns the actual leftovers. So effectively it carries out the calculation, discards all the whole numbers, and just tells you how much is left, not as a decimal place of the original dividing value, but as physical numbers left over. Now, there are mathematical uses for the mod value. One quite common use is to figure out whether a cell or a result is odd or even. Now, we can do that in our sheet 2 here that says even of odd. So let's place a number in here, 67, 45, 32, 12. Now, we know which ones are odd and even, but sometimes it's worth trying to calculate that so you can then make decisions. So we'll do a straightforward if, then we pull up our mod function, which is going to take the number that we're interested in, but its divisor is 2. So we're dividing the number by 2. If the mod of a number divided by 2 is equal to 0, i.e. there is no mod, then that number must be an even number. So our result from here, for the purposes of the demonstration, we can just put out the term even, or if it's not, we can put out the term odd. So our if statement is checking the one cell, dividing it by 2. If the leftover of that equals 0, i.e. there is no leftovers, then we have an even number, else we have an odd number. Return, and we find that 67 is actually odd. And if I replicate the formula, because everything stays relative, we have 2 odd and 2 even numbers. You may then make use of that in another further equation, the fact that you're checking for an even or an odd result. So that's the mod function and the integer function. The integer function returns the full number values of a cell. The mod returns the leftovers after a division takes place.